Welcome to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, brought to you by Pilmma. This podcast helps lead lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Here is your legal marketing expert and host, Ken Hardison.
Hello, everyone. This is Ken Hardison, and welcome to another episode of Grow Your Law Firm. And this week, we have the pleasure and honor of having Bill Pintas with Pintas & Mullins, injury lawyers from, used to be Chicago, but now it's Puerto Rico.
Yes.
Rico. Yeah. And Bill, he spends the most money on marketing in the United States for a lawyer that nobody knows about. And it's unusual. I mean, it just really is. He's got one of the largest, he represents over 30,000 injury clients. He's tied in with Ben Crump, and is his chief legal strategist and does all just a marketing and a technology and marketing guru. And he's also going to be speaking at our event in New Orleans on September 29th through October the 2nd. And you don't want to miss it. And we have decided that we're going to have a hybrid event. So if you feel uneasy about coming down to the Big Easy, we're going to have it live streamed. And we'll also provide videos afterwards, a couple of weeks afterwards. So, Bill, thank you for agreeing to be on our podcast. And it's
thank you, Ken.
Good to see you. And Bill's also in Pilmma, one of our masterminds, and has been off and on now for several years. So tell us a little bit. I just kind of touched on, but tell me about you've got a unique business model, and I just thought it was very interesting, and I wanted our listeners to know more about you.
Absolutely. So we are definitely one of the largest advertising firms in the country. I don't want to claim to be the biggest, because obviously I don't know what everybody else is spending, but we're certainly one of the largest. And we have a very robust marketing team. We have 15 in-house marketing professionals. We run every kind of marketing channel from PPC, Facebook, national TV. Our chief marketing officer is 37 years with an agency. So we run a very robust marketing platform. We do use some outside marketing vendors to kind of price compare with what we're doing in-house, because we're always curious why somebody else is cheaper. So we keep optimizing and learning. This is never a situation, which I guess is kind of like anything in life, where you are a master and you're done. You are always shocked and surprised by, oh my God, I missed that, or I didn't know about that, and tweaking. And, you can't let your ego get in the way, and, you mess something up, change, fix, move forward and keep going. And that's kind of our philosophy. And it's critical. We also have tied in, we have a very robust software engineering team. Our chief technology officer has written 9 books for Microsoft, and we have 6 in-house software developers, which is critical to bringing all this stuff home. I think you need to have all that combined.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, you can never let rest on your laurels, and things change, and you got to test. Google's always changing stuff. Facebook, they're always, you just always got to be on top of it. Things change. I mean, hell, 20 years ago, there was no internet. Everything was yellow pages, and then very little bit of TV, and now it's just everywhere. So exactly. What do you think is the best channel for lawyers to use? Because I get this question asked all the time, and you do it all. So which one do you think is the best ROI?
No, it's a great question. And we do it all and have done it all. And we've spent probably millions of dollars on marketing channels that we never really got to work well, trying it in every permutation. And so we know what not to use also. And that really depends a lot on what kind of budget the firm has and what kind of case they're going after. It's always kind of surprising to me, although I guess if people just don't realize it. But so you have a lot of vendors out there they sell doing television or Facebook or PPC or SEO. And while each of those has their benefit and work, none of them work across every kind of case type. And so you need to know which case type, which one works, what is your budget. And, nowadays the budgets that firms have are insane. They're, 7 figures on a month is not that unusual anymore. And so you're spending a lot of money tweaking things, and you got to look at what your case type is. But then now the phone rings. Now what do? Now you have to answer the calls. And so if you're outsourcing your calls to a call center, good luck. Everybody hates their call center. And even if they have it in-house, it drives you nuts. That's a whole nother, podcast or, webinar we can do on just call centers. But, we have an in-house 50-person team that screens our intakes, and it's always a challenge, and we're learning, and we're shocked when we discover things that we missed. So, but as far as which marketing channel, like I said, it depends on your budget and your case type.
So what like I've always heard that, like, if you go to, mass torts, Facebook works pretty good, but it don't really work really good with single event accidents like car accidents or stuff like slip and falls.
It doesn't. That is true. And the reason why is Facebook, and it works well with mass torts, because mass torts are things that have already happened. You've already used Roundup as a product. You already had ovarian cancer by using baby powder. So you already took the certain pharmaceutical and were injured. So it's after the fact marketing. Television is you're trying to hit those people that just had an accident, and you're getting calls from people. Most of your calls are people who had an accident in the last 7 days. And so you want to be on TV. So it's like direct response. They just got injured and they need to see it. Pay-per-click is the best in terms of intent. Somebody actually went online and typed in, I need a nursing home lawyer, or I need a car accident lawyer. So those are intent. The conversion rates are the highest, and you have somebody who's specifically looking for a lawyer. And so somebody with a mass tort case may not know that their drug, that there's a case there. So they wouldn't be searching for a Roundup lawyer unless maybe they saw a TV commercial or something like that. So television and Facebook work really well with those particular case type. But for auto accident, you're right. It's pay-per-click or television tend to be the dominant ways.
And so I want to talk to you about all these things, and maybe I think you just told me it was like the pros and cons. I mean, pay-per-click, Facebook, TV, because really you just explained that. So I'm not going to ask that unless you could add to what you already said.
Yeah, I mean, those are, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It depends on what you're going after. I mean, and the deal is, if you're going after, and I want to know if you agree with me on this. Like, if I'm going after a nursing home case, I can spend a lot more money to get that nursing home case than I can a $20,000 car wreck case. You know what I'm saying? Because my fee's going to be better, so I can afford to spend more. I mean, is that the way you look at it? I think you want to get it cheap as you can, but what I'm saying is you can still have a good profit even if you pay $5,000 for a nursing home case, versus probably wouldn't be profitable to spend $5,000 on a wreck case if your average fee was, $7,000. You're going to lose money.
Absolutely. I mean, we run our firm like a financial institution. We have a data scientist, we have analysts, and we look at the end of the day, what is our ROI? And our ROI is what are we spending for case acquisition? Our goal is to get the client as much money as possible on the case. That obviously enhances our fee. It benefits the client. And then we look at what is our acquisition cost. We have years of data on single event cases. We know what the fallout rate is. We know what the average settlement times are. And so it's just a question of what does it cost us to acquire? If we can advertise, we've got some single event campaigns we're doing that actually are low paying case types, but the acquisition cost is low. We have others that are expensive to acquire, but the fees are high. And so the ROI is high. So you have to be very nimble. Most lawyers, I think, pigeonhole themselves and we only do this, or, I don't know how to do that. And that's just get over it. I mean, from our point of view, a case is like a commodity. It doesn't really matter. As long as we can represent the client in their best interest and get them a substantial recovery, we don't really care what the case type is. The clients come first, and then we're looking at what can we make, what's our ROI, and it's really all about the metrics and economics. And you need to have a very robust internal system to track all those things. We have over 5,000 phone numbers. We don't ask any client, how did you hear about us? It's not even a question, because when the call comes in, it does a screen pop and it tells us specifically, which TV station it was that they heard it on, even if it's a national ad, which billboard it was from, which PPC ad. We actually can route it directly to that department, because we know the phone number they called might be the hernia mesh phone number that we're running on Facebook. So it goes to the hernia mesh team. So it goes right to those people. And so we know which ad they saw and which creative it was. So that level of detail is critical, because it's a lot easier to make a decision if you have the data and you know the answer. Otherwise, you're guessing. I know a lot of firms use branded numbers, which I'm not criticizing. Those have been successful. But call Bob or whatever the number may be, but you have no way of tracking your performance. You're spending a lot of money on stuff that doesn't work. And what you really have built there is not the phone number. You've built a brand, and the brand is extremely valuable. I think that if you can build a brand and have metered numbers, you're way ahead of the game.
So do you have to use some kind of special software like CallRail or something to do this, to use all these numbers for every little ad that you got out there in the world?
Sure. So as I mentioned, we have 6 people in our development team. Most of our software we've written ourselves. I don't suggest people do that. It's not for the faint at heart. It's a very expensive and long proposition. But our phone numbers go into our own marketing manager that's connected to our call center software. If anybody is serious about this business, they definitely need to have call center software. This is not software you buy, but this is software where you find a phone provider that offers this software. And because the software actually resides on the phone company side, not on your side. And so it allows you to connect to your system through APIs so that you can route that to your phone numbers that you've got tracked on different marketing channels and to your team. And we use Cisco. And we're very happy with it, but there's plenty of other ones out there. It's a Cisco call center software. It's used by Fortune 500 companies, but it's a great software, but I'm not telling you have to use that one. There's other ones out there that are very good as well. And you have to contact your phone provider. And I also suggest you use a phone provider that's not a big one like AT&T, because all of us are mosquitoes to AT&T and your service isn't going to be that great. So you want to use a smaller phone provider who knows how to manage the call center software, so they'll actually take your call and help you get things set up and optimized. But it's, it makes a big difference.
Do you use an internet-based phone system, voice over internet?
Yes, we do. Absolutely.
Yeah. I see a lot of law firms are going to that. A lot of them are just doing stuff like Ring Central and Vonage and different things. But I've seen a big change in that. Used to, when I was in the olden days, I was scared of that because I was afraid the internet would go down. But you just hardly ever see the internet go down now. Everything's fiber. Now, it wasn't that way 15, 20 years ago. It would go down,
Oh, I know. Absolutely.
Everything changes, And I think what you're showing and what our viewers and listeners should be getting from this is that the practice of law has changed, and you got to run it like a business. And you've taken that to the 10th degree and are running it like a Fortune 500 company. But the deal is, if you've got 30,000 cases, active clients, you've got to have systems, processes. You want to automate as much as you can, and that's why I guarantee that's why you got all those programmers in there. You're trying to figure out ways to automate as much as you can, and not give up good client service too, I would think.
Absolutely. I mean, if there's something we need, we build it. And things come up all the time. We're like, oh shit, we forgot about something, or we missed this. How could this happen? How do we avoid this happening again? And we build, whether it be an automatic email, or every time this information is changed, or every time a note is added, or every time, whatever permutation you need, you're able to just build it to make sure you accommodate those situations. And you're able to produce, any kind of metric and data you need, I mean, we have access to it. And that's your goal. That's what everybody's goal should be, to have more data.
Yeah. So I get this question asked all the time, and I'm sure you do too, so everything's so competitive. I mean, you said it, and it's the truth. I mean, especially with PI, it's the most competitive deal I've ever seen in my life. What would you tell a lawyer out there that wants to compete? I mean, what does he need to do? What does he need to have? What does he need to try? What does he need to use?
Sure. First of all, I think that it depends on what your goals are. If you're looking to work and make 150 or 200,000 a year, that's a different kind of model. If you're looking to make, $1 million plus a year, more than likely you're going to need, unless you're a trial lawyer. If you are a very advanced trial lawyer, you can always find people to give you cases to try their cases. In my experience, there's very few lawyers that are elite trial lawyers. I would say, definitely less than 5%. It might be 1 or 2 or 3% that I would call or classify elite trial lawyers. If you happen to fall in that category, you stand alone, and you let people refer you tons of great cases. But aside from that, all the rest of us who are not those elite trial lawyers, and you want to make a lot of money, you're going to need a budget. And trying to build a budget on your own, it takes years. I've been doing this for 37 years. And so, if somebody's younger, or even people who are out there, you need to look at whether if you don't have the money, then borrow from friends or family, or if you can find a bank to help you. Although obviously that's always difficult. And then spend your money wisely on cases. I mean, I see lawyers taking money out of their firm, and I've done it. In 2000, during the .com boom, I took money out of my law firm and started buying stocks, which I ended up losing because that's not my expertise. When I look back at that now, I'm like, there is no profession or industry or investment I'm aware of, maybe Bitcoin now, but short of that, where you're making the kinds of returns you make here. You're investing $100 and you're making 3-4 times your money with every dollar you invest. People are like, oh, here, you can do this real estate investment. You make 8% or 12%. I'm like, 12%? I'm making, I can make 300%. Why would I do that? But we get jaded and start investing in other things. Invest in your own business, invest, in your firm. But it's difficult because most lawyers are busy going to court, taking depositions. And it's very, very challenging to spend the time to learn the marketing. So you want to bring in smart people. A lot of stuff, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that you replicate what I do in terms of doing it in-house. There's a lot of good vendors out there that you can utilize that can get you most of, pretty much all the way there. And you need a budget and have a diversified portfolio. If you're doing auto, you should invest in some mass tort cases. And if you're doing mass tort, you should invest in some single event. I think you got to mix it up.
Yeah, diversify. I took your advice back in 96, 97. I went out and I've been already practicing 10 or 12 years, never did any marketing. And I took everything I had accumulated and went and got a line of credit for $500,000. This is in 96. Probably worth it. That'd be me in a day, I guess. And I put every bit of it in marketing, and probably 80% of it in TV. And man, it's a lot harder now, but the deal is, I think what you find, though, Bill, is a lot of lawyers are scared to take that chance. Either they're afraid of losing, they're afraid they can't do it, or I don't know. What do you say to those people? Because I know you wouldn't have got to where you have to take some risk. There's no way you would have 330,000 active cases unless you took some risk.
Oh, 100%. So I don't feel that the cases I have are much. Some of the mass torts, a few of them are risky. But the single event, I'm confident on what we signed up, and I know the analytics, so I don't feel there's any risk short of any kind of major legislative change. But I think that if people are looking to expand their firm, rather than necessarily advertising, they can go ahead and purchase leads. Because if you find a good lead vendor, you're not really advertising your firm. You're just getting the leads, and you can screen them, and then you can see what the fallout rate is, and you can quickly assess what your ROI is. You know what you're going to make on an auto case or a trucking case or whatever you're doing. So the leads may be a better avenue. To build a brand that costs millions of dollars. Obviously, it depends on the market you're in, and it takes years to do. You can do direct response advertisement where, we run mostly national ads. And so it's not a branded ad, it's a national ad that we're advertising for, whether it be nursing home or lung cancer or mesothelioma or hernia mesh or Roundup. We run those ads, and we're covering the whole nation. But if you're in a given market, you could spend, if somebody goes and borrows $1 million, that may or may not get them to a place where that was a smart move. So, they need to have the systems in place. And are they handling all the cases themselves? Are they getting cases in that they don't really know what they're doing? It's in that context, it's very risky. It's 10 times more risky than what I'm doing, because I know what I'm doing, and I know what to do with the cases, and I have the analytics. So it's definitely not as risky. It's just more of a handling challenge to make sure you process and handle the cases. So, but hey, if you want to make money, you got to take some risks.
Yeah. I mean, you want to take calculated risk, but I think the deal is, like you said, and by the way, maybe you know something I don't, but I feel like about lead companies like I do about call centers. They just ain't no really great ones out there. I mean, maybe you know some, but I'm talking about for single events. I mean, I think there is mass torts, but I think it's tougher on single event car accidents.
I think that there are some lead vendors. We use, like I said, we use outside vendors very little, but we do use some just as as additional support. And you got to go through a lot of them. And certain case, look, we have some lead vendors that are phenomenally good. And then we'll ask them, hey, well, what about this case type? And they'll send us that case type, and it's horrible. So it may not necessarily be the lead vendor. It may be the case type. Some they do really well depending upon how they get them, and other ones they do not. So there's a lot of trial and error, and you're spending minimum $2,500 to $5,000 to get a bunch of leads and test them out, see if it's any good. And if not, you got to keep moving. So you got to kiss a lot of frogs. But otherwise, you do your ads directly, which is mostly what we do. We do our own direct ads. But I think you got to be nimble. You got to keep trying a lot of different stuff and see what works. But a lot of people don't have good systems to screen the cases. If you have busy lawyers, you can't expect them to be screening the cases. It frustrates them. They hate it every time the phone rings. It's counterintuitive. I mean, it's just, unless you have a lawyer specifically that's all they do. But
yeah, and I think you've got to, you got to have dedicated people, intake people. I've been preaching that. Even I told this solo practitioner, I said, I know you don't think I'm crazy, but I promise you, if you hire a dedicated intake person, they'll pay for themselves 5 times over.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
He said, why? I said, because you're missing cases, I promise you. And we did some ghost calls. I created this company called Lawyer Ghost Calls. So I give him 2 or 3 free ones. And he heard it, and he said, you're right. We said, we're not doing a good job. And that's where you said that's a problem. I see that as every law firm I ever went to do any kind of consulting with, that they always got leakage there. I mean, and they don't think they do. They think they sign up every case they want, and you don't.
We're good, and I know we have a lot of leakage, and we're really good, and it drives me crazy. And we're building a call center here in Puerto Rico to expand what we're doing. But it is a challenge, and it is not easy, and you have to work it constantly. So,
I agree. So non-lawyer ownership of law firms, DC was doing it a little bit. It was kind of real complicated. But now Arizona, and I think Utah's too, is coming around where non-lawyers can own law firms. And we've talked about this before on a podcast, but Well, you're a national player, and so I want to get your take on this. Some people are scared to death. Some people say, don't worry about it. It's not going to change anything. What's your take?
I think for probably most lawyers, they should be worried about it. Maybe not immediately, but the writing's on the wall. There's a lot of profits in our industry, and there's a lot of money pouring in. And a lot of these people are very smart and very sophisticated, and they know how to monetize, and they can do analytics and figure out how to monetize it. So, and they have unlimited budgets. So they can come into each individual market, and maybe they're not going to create a competing brand. Maybe they're going to come in and bootstrap on top of somebody who already has a brand and bankroll them or become partners with them. But it makes it that much harder for those that are there. You're chasing after more scraps. So I think if you're a top trial lawyer, it's a good thing, because now, rather than all these small-time lawyers handling cases they shouldn't, these financial groups are going to place the cases with the best lawyers. So the trial lawyers are going to benefit from, in my opinion, from this privatization of law firms like Arizona and Utah. And eventually all the states will do that. So top trial lawyers will benefit. And if you have a robust platform, I think that will benefit as well, because at the end of the day, these are money guys, and they need to partner with people who know how to run businesses and how to try cases. But for the run-of-the-mill firm, I think it's going to become more and more challenging. It's already happening. I mean, acquisition costs, look at what it costs to get an auto case today versus what it did, 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. I mean, it's
crazy.
Yeah, it's getting to the point in many ways where people are like, I don't even know if it's worth it. And in some markets, and now you have less auto accidents, and that's only going to continue, in probably another 5 or 10 years. Forget driverless cars, crash avoidance cars. They're just not going to hit each other. Forget driverless, but they're just not going to hit each other. And so auto accidents are going to be down 90% probably within 10 years.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree on that. I think people need to be thinking about what's next.
But if you're able to try a case, or you're running a business, you shouldn't be traumatized. Just change the case type. There's always other opportunities. You just keep looking and adapt and find something unique and go after it.
I was talking to a lawyer about that, and he said, well, what would you do if you were going back to practice? I said, I do land condemnation. And he said,
I know you. Yeah, it sounds great.
Because number one, they're getting ready to pass this hellacious infrastructure bill. And what does that mean? They're going to be land taken. And unlike injury, people get upset about the government taking your land. And it's real easy to market to, because it's like, you get the list of people that the lands get taken, and then you just direct mail to them. And I mean, pretty cheap. I mean, it's just like anything else. It takes time to get into it. I mean, you got to, it's a contingency based type deal. But yeah, I mean, if I was,
I agree. It sounds like a great opportunity.
Especially with this infrastructure bill, I just think you'll see a lot of money out there. It's going to sort of be like. I look at it as the same opportunity all these government contractors had when we went over to Afghanistan. All the money they made, the millions and billions they made off of the government, these government contracts over there, and we're just, as we could see, it took them a week to, they trained them for 20 years, and it took them a week to lose. I mean, it's crazy. But that's not what we're talking about today, but I guess
that'll be on another call.
No, that's another one. Well, that's interesting, because I did a lot of research on it back. I think the one that's going to really benefit, and I think this is what John Morgan doing, and maybe even what you're doing. I don't know, but I think the guys that are really trying to go national, Finkelstein, Jacoby, he's got Jacoby Myers and all this stuff. You see these guys going national. I think they're getting ready. They're readying up, because they know when more and more these hedge funds, or these venture capitalists, or whatever you want to call them, these like you say, this money go come in there, and who are they going to go to? They're going to go to somebody who's already proved they've got a big brand nationwide. They got their systems in place. and they're going to think they can go in there and even do it leaner and meaner and and whatever. I did a lot of research on that 4 or 5 years ago, back when Finkelstein filed those lawsuits. And in London and Australia, it's been doing it a while, but it really only affected like 17, 18% of the law firms. I mean, they only had like 18% of the business. So I don't know. But it's so different over there because they've got solicitors and barristers, and I don't know the whole deal. And no, I don't know what the whole legal system is over there, but I thought that was interesting. But we'll see. So getting back to your business model, now, I know, I've done it with a group of my lawyers. We've co-invested with you to go acquire cases. So, but for our listeners and viewers out there, can you explain how you do this? Because I think it's really a great model for you and for maybe a lawyer that don't want to, a smaller lawyer, but maybe he hit a big case where he's got some money and he wants to turn it into more money. What can you explain how that works? Sure.
So 90% of the money that we spend is our own. However, firms started coming to us and saying, hey, I don't handle mass torts, or some of them are top handling firms are like, hey, you've been sending us cases, we want more. And so they'll come and say, can I co-invest with you on your advertisement? And they can. And so, we're not an agency or lead vendor, so we also invest. So we put our money in. So if somebody put in whatever, $100,000, $200,000, we match that. We do all the ads. We tell them up front what they're going to get. So there's a guaranteed level of performance. We take the risk, not them. And then we partner with top tier trial lawyers. And we do this. We work with over 400 firms around the country. And people get, we have a co-counsel agreement. They know who the clients are, and we're off to the races. And it allows people who normally do not dabble in mass torts to do so. Or if it's a handling firm and they want more of nursing home, or they want more of hernia mesh, they're able to get those cases by doing it through us versus through some lead vendor. The problem with the lead vendors is they make their money when they sell it to you. If it's good or bad, it doesn't really matter. For us, we only get paid like you on the back end. And so we have to sign up quality cases. So our interests are completely aligned. So that's why that model has worked extremely well, because we only do that. The other thing we do differently on the mass torts is we try to get into late stage cases. I know there's a lot of new cases that come out. Everybody's like, oh my God, I got to get in there. And they start spending money. And 6 months later, or 6 years later, even worse, you find out it was garbage and you've been sitting around or you wasted all this money. So the late stage stuff where they've already announced that they're in settlement negotiations. And because I work with so many firms, this is legal inside information. And they'll call me up and they'll say, hey, get me, I need, get me 1,000 Zantac cases as soon as possible. And, or Zantac's a bad example because that's not in settlement negotiation, but let's say Roundup or hernia mesh. And, and obviously we go through the process and why and this and that, and we're negotiating and what's the amount. And I look at the acquisition costs, and now we go after those cases when we know they're already in settlement negotiation. So the risk is much, much lower when they're actually negotiating a settlement, or when the defendants announce, like in Roundup, the defendants announced that we're going to settle this tort for $10 billion. We went out and got 2,700 cases as soon as they said that. So, what's the risk when they said they're going to settle? I mean, not that high. So, those are the kinds of things that people should look at, whether they're going to do it through us or do it through somebody else. Try to get in my opinion, get through late stage mass tort cases. So it's a great investment.
Well, great. So you're going to be speaking at our summit. What are you going to talk about?
Well, I'm going to be talking about mostly what I just talked about here. The other thing is, I don't know if we mentioned it earlier. So I moved to Puerto Rico last year. And for those people who don't know, if you move here and you set up a business, and there's a lot of different compliance required, but you legitimately become a resident here and you live here, this is your new home. State and federal income tax are 4%. And so that's a big incentive. And so there's a ton of lawyers. We just formed the Trial Lawyers of Puerto Rico Association. I'm actually the first member. And we've got a bunch of lawyers, a lot of mass tort guys and some single event guys that moved here and set up shop. You got to set up a law firm and You hire staff and lawyers and you're off to the races. And you're not representing Puerto Rican citizens, you're representing clients in the mainland. And that's required in order for you to take advantage of the tax benefit. And, it's a sophisticated, I would direct somebody to somebody who's an accountant or a lawyer that specifically deals with this. This is not like you don't call your local accountant because they wouldn't know anything about this. So, but it exists. It sounds too good to be true, but it's actually real. It's legislation. The IRS knows about it. It's not some like clever thing that people kind of make up. It's a legitimate thing. They want to promote the economic base of Puerto Rico, and it's sanctioned by the government. But you have to comply. You can't half-ass it.
Yeah, you got to actually live down there. You can't just buy a house and then come back and stay 2 weeks a year.
Yeah, you can't. Exactly. You got to actually live here, and you got to make it your home, and you get your voter registration, your driver's license, and your doctor's here, and your kids go to school here, and this is your house. I mean, it's no different than if you moved out of New York and moved to Florida and you now live in Florida. I mean, when you really live somewhere or you don't. A lot of people keep their country club memberships back at home in their house and their cars and their friends, and they're here for the winter and then they go back for the summer. I think it's fraught with all kinds of problems doing that, and it might get unwound.
Yeah. They might get in trouble with that. Yeah. I've heard that. So any closing thoughts or comments, and people need to get up with you or want to talk to you more about stuff that
sure.
Just pick your brain.
Absolutely. They can certainly email me, bill@pintas.com, or I'll give you my cell phone, 312-375-6983. They can text me as well. I'm probably more responsive to a text. And be more than happy to help them out with whatever they need. But the mistake I made when I first got out of law school, you don't know what you don't know, is sitting down and deciding what do you want, where do you want to go, what is figuring out how you want this to end up, and then from there strategize. There's a lot of stress and aggravation if you want to go big. It's not easy, and and what do you need to do it? And there's a lot of different permutations. And if are you a trial lawyer? Are you a business person? What do you know? Are you good at marketing? And then play to your strengths and not try to be something you're not. Play to your strengths. And once you figure that out, then just attack it and be merciless and get it.
There you go. Listen, I appreciate you taking time, and I look forward to seeing you in New Orleans.
Likewise. Thank you.
All right, buddy. And until next time, this is Ken Hardison, dedicated to your success.
You have been listening to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, the podcast that leads lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Go to growyourlawfirm.com to find more ways to market and manage your law firm. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts.